Have you ever felt like something or someone was trying to get your attention? A quiet voice in your heart? A moment of clarity you couldn't explain? A deep sense that you were being guided even if you fully didn't understand it? Some call it the universe, some call it coincidence, but I believe it's something more. I believe it's the voice of God, the God of heaven and earth, the one who still speaks today. This is episode 1 of When God Speaks, a series where we begin to explore what it means to hear from God, how he speaks, and why it still matters. Each episode in this season will build upon each other, so you're not going to want to miss out on the upcoming features. Come and see. Let's get started. Wow, welcome to the first episode of When God Speaks. And so I'm just really excited to get into this. I have had a relationship with God for I think it's been 8 years, something like that. Yeah, something like that. And then I know I've been here in Colorado for 7 years. So yeah, after I encountered God, which I had encountered God outside of the church in a radical way. And it took me time, but God brought me into the church with a message. And ever since then, I've just been helping people hear the voice of God in different ways. I feel like it's just one of those things that if you don't believe in God, you might not recognize that he is consistently trying to speak to you. And if you are a believer and you have a relationship with God and you feel distant in the season for whatever reason and you feel like you can't hear God's voice, I feel like this is an opportunity and an invitation to explore the different ways that he can speak. Like I said, these episodes are going to build upon each other, so you're not going to want to miss these. At the end of this episode, I'm going to start listing off a lot of the different ways that God speaks and some that might surprise you. But first, I thought it would be amazing to get into a testimony, a story of a friend that I knew, that I grew up with in, I think middle school and high school, but definitely high school. And so she wasn't a believer at the time. I wasn't a believer at the time. And what's amazing is that I am starting to find out more people that I grew up with finding God in their own separate way, and they just have powerful stories and testimonies of how God entered into their lives. And so if this interests you, I just want you to please give me a like, a subscribe. Please comment below how you might hear God. And so let's go ahead and begin with Alicia's testimony. I grew up in church. My Nana would take me every Sunday and I'd watch everyone dance and praise God. I thought it was so much fun to dance and sing with everyone. Around 8 or 9, I went to the children's Bible study and listened to an adult ask if anyone was ready to accept Jesus into their heart. My friends were all doing it, so I thought, I better do it too. I never felt connected to God. I always questioned my faith and always asked my Nana, how do you know what you believe is true? How do you know that someone else's beliefs are not just as true? She's the kindest person and always responded with, you have to have faith. Well, I didn't like that answer, and I didn't truly believe that Jesus had come to save us. I believed that there was a God, but was there only one God? What about 2 or 3? How many gods were there? As I grew older, I lost interest in religion. I didn't attend church. I didn't speak of God or Jesus to anyone. If someone would invite us to church, I told them that we had other plans. I was on active duty in the Navy from 2010 to 2014, stationed in Yokosuka, Japan. During that time, I had met my husband. My son was born at the Naval Hospital in Japan. My husband left for a 6-month deployment a week later and left me with our very first child. No family, limited friends for support. When I said I had no help, I'm not exaggerating. I was in a foreign country. I didn't know it at the time, but I had PPD badly, postpartum depression. So badly, I was admitted to a psych unit for a week while another active duty friend took care of our son. We lived on the 9th floor of an apartment building, and I had thoughts of throwing him off the balcony. It was terrifying, and I am the one who got help before something horrific happened. After getting help, I felt a little bit better. My husband came back from deployment and things were okay. He left a few months later for another 6-month deployment. At the time, I developed major panic attacks. I couldn't even go to the grocery store because I was scared I would have a panic attack and everyone would think I was crazy. When I returned to work 6 weeks after our son was born, I had a panic attack and had to be brought to an ambulance on a stretcher and hooked up to oxygen. I developed agoraphobia, a type of anxiety disorder in which you fear and avoid places or situations that might cause you to panic and make you feel trapped, helpless, or embarrassed. I refused to go to work or to leave our apartment, and then it happened. I wanted to kill myself. I thought that nobody would care or miss me because I was so far away in Japan. No one would even realize I was gone. My boss had to take me back to the mental hospital to talk about being discharged from active duty because I was not fit to protect and defend our great country. At mental health, I cried and begged them to help me and to let me stay. I went to the counselor who helped me to get control over my anxiety and then learned what was triggering it. She taught me how to stay grounded, quote unquote, and that helped. I still struggled with panic disorders after we left Japan, but they slowly stopped after a few years. I am also a disabled veteran because I received a diagnosis of panic disorder accompanied by an adjustment disorder, meaning it is really hard for me to have a routine change. When we moved back to Iowa, there was a 3-month period where I called my mom regularly, crying, and I couldn't ever be happy there. But for someone with this mental health disorder, it is much more difficult to deal with big life changes. My husband has also had a difficult time with anxiety and depression. He has recently diagnosed with severe PTSD, anxiety, and depression. I have never known him to be sober until now. He would drink to the point of peeing himself and passing out. Last month was a very dark time for our family. He went out with his coworkers and promised he'd come home at a decent time. He drove home extremely drunk and passed out in our bed. He could have killed himself or someone else. I was ready to finally leave. I didn't know how I would do it financially, but I knew that I didn't want this for my kids, and I didn't want to feel all of this stress that he caused any longer. He left for about a week, and I took that time to really think about myself and the kids. I put him out of my mind and just focused on getting it better. I was washing dishes in our kitchen and listening to music when Rescue Me by Lauren Daigle started playing. I started bawling and sat on my kitchen floor for 2 hours praying. In that moment, I felt completely different, like a different person. I craved to be closer to God. I couldn't stop talking about how incredible Jesus was and everything that he had done for me. I called my Nana and told her all of this and said, I think I've been saved. I never understood it before, but I never felt it. I have been born again and I feel completely different, like a brand new person. Since then, I've been attending church, taking our kids to Wednesday kids Bible study, and started doing a women's Bible study on Thursdays this week. I can't even begin to describe how peaceful I feel knowing that God knows my past, present, and future. I no longer have anxiety or worry as much about things that are beyond my control. We never understand God's plan, but he does have a plan for our lives. I'm excited to continue watching the work God does in our lives. All right, so welcome back. So hearing Alicia's testimony was so powerful. So many things in there that we need to eventually pay attention to. So if you re-listen to that, you're hearing like the enemy's voice, the voice of the enemy. So John 10:10 talks about the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But that's not the end of that verse. It goes on and says, but I have come, Jesus, I have come to give you life and life more abundantly. And so, yes, while there is these voices that try to make you self-harm, to make you doubt who you are, or make you feel alone, that you don't matter or isolated, having those suicidal thoughts or tendencies. Those thoughts aren't you alone. Those thoughts of, immersed worry and panic, having those panic disorders. I've also can relate to Alicia, because I have been in a lot of her a lot of the story that she tells. I have also participated in panic disorder and having anxiety and having depression. Just people in the military, they go through a lot of things, and when those type of traumas begin to hit you, those life situations, it's also sometimes an invitation for the enemy to come and attack you. And I know I'm talking about an enemy already, but there is a spiritual war happening here. There is spiritual warfare. So yes, we have to recognize that there is both good and evil here on earth. And yes, there is the in between, there's that gray area, but there really is things that are going on in our everyday lives. And I think that, hearing Alicia's story of being alone, going through those things, and, we often ask ourselves, where are you, God? If you're real, where are you? And God spoke, like this series is about God speaking, but God spoke to Alicia in her kitchen while she was by herself. What's amazing about this story, Alicia's story, was that Alicia was in her kitchen by herself. No one else was there, and she wasn't at church. She didn't believe in God or Jesus at the time. She didn't want to attend church, or especially when anyone invited her to. Her life is crumbling around her, and God meets her in her kitchen, right in her house, through the radio, through a song. And so that is one way that God can speak. One, you see that in the beginning of Alicia's story, she said, I just never felt connected to God. And I think that's a huge problem in the church right now, is that people can go to church and still not feel connected to God. Or maybe you might even feel connected on Sunday, but the other 6 days of the week, you don't. You feel distant. You're like, why can people hear God's voice so easily in church, but when you're outside of the church, you can't? Or you just go back into this, weekday warrior life, and you get so distracted by just the mundane and the busyness. That's just kind of how our culture here in the West is, busy. And that's unfortunate. There's a lot of distractions. When's the last time we took time to not be on our headphones, or not to have noise going on, or stop to just breathe the fresh air, or take time to look at the mountains? I'm here in Colorado, so I get some time to look at the mountains. But here, even in Colorado, there's a lot of noise and busyness. In Iowa, I felt like I can just drive, 3 minutes down the road, and there's going to be no one around. But that's not what it's like here. There's a lot of noise. And so the practice of getting alone to hear God's voice, it is a practice. It's a practice. And so, yes, God speaks in so many different ways, and I'm so glad Alicia was able to share that story with me when that happened to her. What was awesome to see when Alicia reached out to me and told me this story that she had met God, it was almost like a few months later she was on a mission trip to another country, trying to help people. That's because that was something that was impressed on her heart. And that's something that is something that happens to people when they find God sometimes. It's like this fire ignites in you, and you can't help but want to know more, and you don't even know why. It's just this this fire. But anyways, hearing God, I also did not meet God inside of the church walls. I didn't grow up as a Christian myself. My grandma and grandpa used to go to a Methodist church. My grandma was definitely the forerunner for us and believed in Jesus. But at the time, my family and myself included just did not believe God. And I didn't want to, go spend a whole Sunday in church. That just seemed so boring and dull. And, people talked about God. And I think that's the thing with within Christian within the Christian, religion, I guess, is that people talk about God, but never really seem to have a deep relationship with him. And I'm just saying that in generalities. I've since have met so many people that have deep, intimate relationship with God, hears his voice really well. And they're living lives out of what you think you would see out of a Christian. So living their lives filled with joy, no matter the circumstances that are happening around them. And I'm not saying that every Christian is perfect. If you find a perfect Christian, that's probably a problem, because God didn't call perfect people, but he called people like you and me. And I think that's really amazing. So hearing God's voice, first, I think it's important to talk about which God am I talking about. And from Alicia's testimony and story, I am talking about the Christian God. I'm talking about the Creator God. He is also the 3-in-1 God. And so, yes, Father God, Son, Holy Spirit. Yes, so God is a 3-in-1 God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I think it's just important to speculate that we are also 3-in-1. We are soul, body, and spirit. So pretty amazing, right? All right, so what you have been waiting for, and I can't wait to begin to dive deeper into each of these different ways that God can speak. And I'm going to share some of these ways with you, but know that I wouldn't even limit God to these alone. But these are some ways that I've either experienced him speaking, or I've observed others speaking or hearing from God's voice in these different ways. So let's get into it. So first is our 5 senses. So sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. And yes, so it's our 5 physical senses, but God can also heighten our spiritual senses in the same manner. So maybe if it is, touch. One of the ways that God can speak is through words of knowledge, which means that God will give you insight that you wouldn't have otherwise unless he told you. But sometimes it's about a person or another person that you might encounter in your day. But let's say that I woke up feeling fresh, no pain in my body. But later in the day, I formed a knee pain, and that might be in a suggestion that there might be someone that you will be running into today that God is inviting you to pray for healing. And so, yes, God speak through touch? Yes, that is something, it's kind of one of those weird things. You're like, man, I got a pain in the back. Well, and you're like, I haven't been in pain there, all week. That's out of the ordinary. God might be speaking to you. All right, so what else? We have, so the 5 senses. We have dreams, We have signs and wonders. Yeah, so let's get back to dreams. Like God, throughout the entire Bible, God is speaking to his disciples or the people that he has chosen through dreams. And people still are being spoken to today by dreams. And I think that is an amazing way to communicate to God. Heck, why not be able to just go to sleep and wake up, have a dream, and take time to analyze and interpret what that might mean. Now, is every dream from God? No, but some are. One of the reasons I came to Colorado was because I had dreams of mountains. And did I know exactly where I was going right away when I had that dream of mountains? No, not necessarily. I thought, well, maybe, there's two places that were impressed in my heart. And I had been to Colorado once or twice before, but I've never lived in Colorado. And so maybe it was Colorado, but also the Philippines has mountains. And so that decision was a pretty big decision, right? So whether I'm going to, a 12-hour drive in one direction or I'm going on the other side of the world. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I was supposed to go. And so when God speaks, he will also confirm. And for me, how he came to confirm was that I just began seeing all these Colorado things, whether it was on license plates or people's shirts. And I was like, okay, it must be that I need to go to Colorado. And then I did. I met my wife here. I became a pastor at a church here. And now I'm here still having an adventure. And so, yes, God can speak to you in dreams, signs and wonders, numbers. He can speak through prophetic numbers. We'll get into that, deeper dive into that later. People, he can speak through people. Even if people don't know God, sometimes God can kind of like download a message to that person. And for you, you're like, that's so weird that I just needed to hear that today. And then I have to just suggest to you is we have to ask ourselves, was that a coincidence? Was that really coincidence? Or was that a divine appointment? Okay, so God can speak through people. God can speak through angels. He can speak through his word, the Bible. I think that is a great way to be able to hear God's voice and then also know his character, like we were talking before. Knowing God's character is a huge deal. You want to make sure that you're hearing from the right God if you're trying to tune in and listen in. Also, impressions. Something kind of like, I just feel like I just know that I know that I'm supposed to do this thing today. And so that impression, while some of us, and I'm definitely one to feel an impression and be like, it's easy to brush off sometimes. But if you are like, man, I just really got to do this thing, there might be something special there that happens that day. Whether it's you run into a certain person or, you never know. But yeah, impressions. Also, God speaks through the arts. And I love this because the arts is like painting. Arts can be so many different mediums. Dancing, movement, media or TV or radio. I consider all those things different arts. So God can speak in so many different ways. And I think that when we ask ourselves, can God speak to me? We want to be and believe that God only speaks one way. And maybe it's just going to be, we're just waiting for that audible voice to whisper in your ear, which can totally happen. But I just want to invite you to know that there are different ways that God can speak. And we will be deep diving in each of these topics here soon. If, as we wrap things up, please leave a comment below and let me know how God speaks to you or how you would like to hear from God. Is having that desire of hearing God's voice in a certain way, that isn't by accident. If you're like, man, I would just like to be able to have a vision, or whether it's a vision in your mind's eye, or some people often have open visions. So it's almost like watching a TV screen that just pops up in your peripherals or frame. I don't know how it doesn't. I've never experienced it that way, but others have. And I'm looking forward to having some guests on here too, to be able to talk more about these topics. And because I don't know everything. So having some special guests on here would be really amazing. And so be looking forward to that. And I think that is it. We're going to wrap things up. I am very appreciative of you. If you kind of enjoy where this is going, and please just let me know in the comments, and please like, subscribe, and check out the future videos. All right. Hey, I'm Blair 1000. Peace out.